Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Well, another area that in which people have unquestioned assumptions, I think, has to do with gender roles.
Yes, so that comes back to the differences that different genders have in consciousness that we can look at. In another conversation we talked about post-conquest and pre-conquest consciousness. In pre-conquest consciousness is consciousness that is informed mostly by feeling, whereas post-conquest consciousness is informed by logic and reason. And in general, I don't want to talk in firm stereotypes, but in general it seems like that men tend to be more at home with using reason and logic as ways of communication, whereas women tend to feel more comfortable with feeling and relationship as modes of communication. I think both men and women have the capacity to have feeling and thinking as their modes of knowing themselves in relationship.
Yes.
We need to cultivate both, and instead of just communicating and dealing with ideas in terms of intellectual abstractions, as the modern educational system seems to emphasize, we need to also honor feeling as a valid way of knowing. And so rather than just be thinking our abstract thoughts, we need to learn to feel our thinking, to pay attention to the embodied wisdom that we all possess that seems to be more natural to women than to men, whatever the reasons for that would be. But nevertheless, both men and women have both capacities, and we need to cultivate both our feeling and our reasoning and thinking capacities and integrate them more.
Well, there certainly is a sense when you talk about pre-conquest and post-conquest that in ancient times people were more, well, Riane Eisler calls it a partnership culture.
Yes.
Men and women were more equal, and they often revered the great goddess. And then the conquering people tended to be wandering nomads on horseback who worshipped a sky god and were patriarchal.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that conquering somehow seemed to be more of a masculine thing.
It again comes back to the notion of domination, that of superiority, that we unfortunately know through history that a lot of problems have arisen from the idea that the male of the species is superior to the female of the species. There's no reason for that to be true, and we need to, as many people now have been waking up to realize that that's an absurd
And nature
position.
itself is viewed as feminine. In fact, I recall a fascinating quote by a philosopher I greatly admire, yet the quote horrifies me, Sir Francis Bacon, who once wrote that we must torture nature to extract her secrets.
To put nature to the rack, to extract her secrets, yes. And that's another example of humans are special, that humans should torture and have the right, not just the might and the means, but the right to torture nature, to extract knowledge from nature. It's another example of domination. If nature is feminine, then of course it's justified within that patriarchal perspective for the male scientists to investigate nature in a way that rapes the natural world, to torture it, to put it to the rack, to extract the knowledge. That's a very dangerous idea.
Yeah, I mean, in one time in human cultures, almost universally, not entirely, women were viewed as property. Men had property rights over women. A woman had to be obedient even to her male children.
Yeah, unfortunately that is still active in some contemporary societies. And that's another assumption that needs to be questioned and corrected.